My problem was that I had too much growing up to do before I started a family, and so it was the right time for me to have children at 40, but biologically I think it was the wrong time. I think I should have been perhaps 5 years younger, maybe 35 would have been a good age.
Why do you think that though?
Oh, because I discovered at 40 that, or discovered rather at 38 or 39 that I couldn't have them naturally and I needed IVF. Now, apparently they're doing all these tests now and finding that women who leave it too late are coming up with these problems. My problem was that my tubes were blocked, my fallopian tubes were blocked, and my gynae said that I could either have an operation or I could go for IVF. If you have the operation, there's a possibility, there's a 1% chance it could go wrong, in which case you'll have to have the whole lot out. And I couldn't take that risk.
Yeah.
And so I had the children at 40.
And you were lucky, weren't you? Because not everyone conceives via IVF.
Well, it was the third time, and they said that because you're 40, you know, that age thing that looms over you, because you're 40, your chances of getting pregnant are much, much less.
And also the chances of having a child with a problem
are
much higher.
Yeah.
Did you worry about that?
Of course, I really worried about it.
Did you
because
have tests and
you
all?
read every magazine and every article, and it all says that the chances of having a child that's Down
Spina
syndrome,
bifida,
all these things are far greater. 1 in 100, I think.
It's so hard. There's such a small window of opportunity for us to get it right, isn't it? I mean, unless you meet your bloke at university or when you're that kind of age, you know, stage school for you or whatever it was, that you fall in love then, that is the right age to meet somebody, isn't it? When you're 20, spend 3 years together and have a baby, that's ideal. But how many of us do that?
Well, and is it wrong though then? And you can almost understand it for not to be necessarily be married. I want a child, I want somebody to father it for me, and I will bring up that child on my own.
Yeah.
You can understand that yearning. It's like, well, if I haven't met somebody and I'm unlikely to, why do I have to wait till I meet the person to father that child? I want a baby.
I did think along those lines.
Did you?
Yeah, when I was about 34, 35, because I'd finished with a long-term relationship, one that I'd been in for 7 or 8 years. And I thought, now, who am I going to meet? I've got to settle down with someone, fall in love with someone and want to start a family. And I'm 35. I'm going to have to go and find someone who I think is a musician. I wanted the child to be musical and I wanted them to be the right height. And I thought, well, this is actually a good way of doing it. Because then I can really, go shopping.
But you did almost go shopping because that's what Steve is.
He is, he's all the things. He's a bit short.
Are your children musical?
And a bit bald.
Did your genetic thing work though? Are your children musical?
Incredibly so.
Oh, well then it did work.
Yeah.
Well, but it is. I want blonde, blue eyes, sort of like, 6 foot and the designer baby.
Yeah. I think one of the problems, and you probably think this is quite controversial, but since, abortion basically became widely available and contraception, men no longer have to take responsibility for getting a girl pregnant. So, in my mother's generation, if a girl got pregnant, the man stood by her. If a girl gets pregnant nowadays, a man can turn around and go, well, that's your fault. You have it or not have it.
Exactly.
I'm not sticking by you. And I think that's one of the problems why women aren't getting married young, why couples aren't, because the men don't have to. They don't have that obligation.
I'm a bit of a throwback, I think. Well, I got married quite early. I was 23, and we started trying to have babies at 25. I was 25, he was a few years older, and I had 2 miscarriages. Bang, bang, and all sorts of complications. And I remember thinking, well, bloody hell, how much earlier do I have to start trying?
Do you know what caused them?
No, I don't really. And one of them was particularly nasty in that at the end, if they hadn't have got all of the cells out when they sort of take you into a hospital and scrape everything away, it could potentially have gone cancerous. And so there was talk of, well, and if your hormone level goes up, we have to monitor you every week, and if the hormone level goes up, it means the cells are growing, which means you'll have chemotherapy. And you're just thinking, but I just started out to try and have a baby at the young age of 25. And so we just sort of gave it a rest and went travelling all over the world, actually, threw in our jobs, sold a house.
You don't think about it.
Exactly. Toured Europe for 6 months and came back with a 6-week-old souvenir, which is my daughter. She came back 6 weeks pregnant with her, But it's that kind of thing. I don't think there is a right age because, you know, I've tried to do it young. You know, other people, other people in your situation, Cheryl, would be, you know, desperate to have the baby and the IVF wouldn't have worked and maybe they're still childless. Like, there's always exceptions.
I think women have to have that fertility thing in their heads. I mean, I have a friend who was planning to get married and she was talking to me, she was 33. She said, I'm planning to get married in a couple of years and then we're going to have to wait a couple of years before we have kids. And I said, don't, because I'd read up about it and I knew people who couldn't have children quite close to me because they'd you know, past their sell-by date as far as that goes. And I advised her, I said, don't wait, have a baby straight away. And she did try, and she still had to have IVF. And she says to me now, well, thank goodness you said that to me, Rachel, because I might have left it too long.
The awful thing is, I think that women are actually planning it too much like a timetable. I'm going to get married when I'm 34 and I'm going to have a baby. I'm going to wait 2 years and have it at 36. So they wait 2 years. Say, right, I'm now going to have a baby. And because it's become fits in their mind that that's what they're going to do, and it is proved that this has happened, it's psychologically, it's such a pressure on the body, it switches off. And it's, you often hear about
then. Perverse a bit.
It is perverse, but it's like you're so desperate, you're trying so hard that you over try. And it stops functioning. It's like squeezing the thing.
Like a stress thing.
Yes, and you're putting the whole body under pressure. And so often you read about like these people that can't get pregnant. The last resort is IVF, but in the meantime, it's like, what can I do? Oh, I'll adopt, or I'll get a puppy. This is sort of like the substitute, and then they get pregnant. They stop thinking about it. It's a very weird thing, and we're being too regimented. But I suppose, generally speaking, they are saying, the younger you are, the better it is. I mean, now they're even sort of saying 19.
That's right. That's
or something like that. So the body, but the body might be ripe for having babies at 19, but not here. No. How can you do it? You're a child. No. You've had no responsibilities at all. Everything's been done for you. I mean, it's exceptional if you've been out sort of like fending for yourself for several years. At the age of 19, most are still looked after and have parental guidance and everything.
But at least if you have your baby when you're that age, your parents are still around to help bring them up.
This is going back.
This is going back. Your childhood almost. You haven't outlived your sort of. You haven't partied. You haven't played the field.
But you're making it very narrow age when you can have a baby. So you can't have it when you're a teenager because you're too young. You can't leave it till your 30s. So there's just your 20s. I mean, it is this terribly narrow.
I think they say no, but I mean, I suppose that the perfect time is such and such, and then you've got between that and that. Haven't you?
Lucky. But maybe they shouldn't make such a fuss about teenagers having babies, you know. Why not?
But they should make a fuss about it because they can't handle it. And all right, fair enough, if they have got parents that are quite happy to take on that responsibility, then...
But people used to, didn't they? I mean, my grandmother's generation, they were all having babies at 18 and 19 and they went on to have big families.
That's just what I was going to say. I mean, you've only got to look at history and biologically, we are supposed to have children very young and then we're supposed to die when we go through the menopause, because that's what used to happen. You know, by the age of 50, we were all finished, and unfortunately, our body clock hasn't moved on with our way of life. Our way of life, really, we should start having periods in our early 20s and stop in our 60s.
Things have changed because children are having them earlier. So we are changing. Sometimes they're having their periods at 10. Yes, it is. But we are changing. It's going all completely up the spout.
Yeah. So best age? What do you reckon?
When you meet the right man.
Yeah, absolutely right.